What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the all-new 2020 Hyundai Palisade. Huge thanks to Hyundai for bringing me out here to Asheville, North Carolina to review the all-new Palisade for you guys today. So about the Palisade, well, this is Hyundai's version of the platform that's shared with the Kia Telluride. And so although they share a platform, they're very different vehicles, as you can see just from the exterior here. The main thing is, the Hyundai with its front end has this crocodile eye LED arrangement that they call it, which looks really cool, especially when it's lit up there. Looks very, very sharp. They also have the signature Hyundai cascading grille, which looks very good. And I think it's kind of the full evolution of this design that we've seen many times before with having the actual headlights there in the lower part of the front bumper and having the accent lights in the top part. And I think it's a very cool look that, especially here on the Palisade, looks very handsome and very upscale. Coming down to the side, you have 20-inch wheels here on one of these limited versions. You can get 18s on the lower trims, and they look very good. Also, all the bright work around this vehicle makes it look very attractive and upmarket as well. I also especially love these mirrors, which have the built-in turn signals, which isn't uncommon, but the way that they're styled into the actual mirror cap, I think is really unique and different and looks great. Going out back there, you have a very typical, it's a little bit of a squared off boxier shape to maximize the interior space in this vehicle. And one interesting thing though is the tail lamps here, which are a little busy, but I think they're very cool. I'm still getting used to them a little bit because at night is when they get a little busier, because that part that looks like it's chrome there next to the taillights actually does glow red as well. And it's a dimmer light than the actual brake lights, but does kind of contribute to the signature of the lights here at night. And so I think it's a very interesting look. Again, I think it's a little less simple, but overall, I think it's a very classy looking SUV and looks like it'd be a lot more expensive than its price tag suggests. First, for the interior of the Palisade, well, it's a very nice place to be. I mean, Hyundai has really taken a huge leap here with these newer interiors, and especially the Palisade takes it to a whole new level since this is the top dog in the lineup. So this is the limited trim, and first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have these very nice leather seats. I love the quilting you have here on the back of them. Looks very cool. And this is only for the limited though. If you go for the lower trims, you can get some leather seats in the SEL, I believe, but the base one does come with cloth still. So those who do enjoy cloth, that is something you're able to get here. But anyway, they're very comfortable seats, a tad bit on the firmer side than some of the competitors, like a Subaru Ascent has a little bit of a cushier seat. But these I think have good support, and they're not too firm or anything. Really great. I'm sure they'd be super comfortable on long trips. They also are heated and ventilated here, and Hyundai does some of the best cooling in their seats here. I mean, they actually get nice and cold. A lot of other seats are ventilated instead of actually cooled, and this one actually does get cold and gets you cold, and I really love that about them. And yeah, I mean, the support's pretty good for a 3-row crossover. Again, nothing too sporty, but it's definitely enough. And overall, really good seats. Next is the steering wheel here in the Palisade, which is very nice. Again, similar to other stuff like a Santa Fe or something like that, but it's a really great wheel. It's nicely leather wrapped, has a nice 9-3 grip, nice 10-2 notches, and just a few buttons here on it. Honestly, I really like the way they arranged this so that it's not too overwhelming. I will say it's not quite as premium as the Kia Telluride. It's a platform mate, so I think this has a little bit less metal here on it, or metal looking material. Next to the gauges here in the Palisade, which are very cool. This is one of the really cool things about the Palisade, is these digital gauges, which you really don't get in most of the competitors. Even the Telluride doesn't offer digital gauges, and it's really great. It's a large, I think 12-inch display here. I really like the graphics. It's very high resolution, and I like the color themes. So those change depending on the drive mode there. Of course, if you're in sport mode, it goes all red and gets a little sportier looking, and then on the other side for comfort and eco modes, it's a little more mellow looking, and I really like the way that those are set up. Now, I will say the only thing I can complain about is that there's still not a ton of customization there in the middle. So you do have, a couple of cool things. So you have that background does change when you go into the driver's assist stuff, and also if you go and actually are navigating, it will kind of show you the map, although it's not a satellite view or anything, of course, but it will kind of show you an enlarged version of the map there in the middle, which is appreciated. But unfortunately, Hyundai still refuses to offer any kind of audio information in there, any kind of media display, so you still have to look over to the center screen for that. Another cool little party trick almost that they do that is also a great safety feature is that whenever you use the turn turn signals, it will show you what that is seeing there with those side cameras, and so that gives you extra peace of mind. Now you do still have normal blind spot monitoring indicators in the mirrors, but having an actual picture of what's going on over there can be helpful when you're in tight spaces, or again, just to give you extra peace of mind that there truly isn't anything there. And so overall, fantastic gauges. Now, if you weren't going for a limited trim, then in the SELs, you get gauges very similar to the Telluride, where you have analog dials, but then you have a pretty large digital portion in the middle there. And then if you go to the base Palisade, then you will have a smaller little center screen there instead. So each trim has their own gauges, but I think it's very tempting to go for these gauges and go for the limited trim for that reason alone. Then coming over to the center of the dashboard here, you have this very nice large 10.25 inch widescreen display here. And again, this is very similar to what we're seeing in some of the newer Kias and other Hyundai products as well. And it's a really great system here. I love the setup. It is so refreshingly simple, and it shows you that you can have something very high-tech feeling that isn't confusing, like many of the high-end German brands that really make you scratch your head sometimes with their layouts. This, I mean, you just have the 3 areas here, and you can customize what you see in those 3 areas, but there's not a million choices, just a few here, but all the basics you want with the map, the audio, and then this one has driver talk, but you could have weather there or other things if you'd like. And the maps look good. Again, nothing super high tech or anything, but good enough. And I think most people these days are going to use their smartphones, and thankfully the Palisade does come standard with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in all trims, all versions of it. So even if you go for the lower end trim, you still don't sacrifice that. You still are going to have that as standard, which is fantastic. And then you swipe over to the other menus here, and you'll see driver talk, which actually will broadcast kind of like a PA system to the back seats, and that's something that Honda introduced, and Kia and now Hyundai are joining in with that. I think it's a really cool feature. There's also quiet mode, which is also from those others, and that will also just pipe in sound through the front speakers here and keep it quiet in the back in case you have little ones that are sleeping, and a very handy feature there as well. And just a few other things here, you can kind of customize how all that's displayed as well if you'd like, but I just, even the menus for the radio and stuff are very easy. Thankfully, you have a volume and a tune knob, which again is getting more and more rare these days, so that nicely simplifies everything, so you don't have to keep touching the screen to scroll through radio stations or anything. So I mean, they really got it right with this infotainment system. I am so glad that the Palisade got it. It's fantastic. Coming down, you have, like I said, those knobs and also a nice row of very nice metallic buttons here, which look great. And then coming down beyond that, you'll have your auto climate control here, which is nicely set up. And also in this area, you have nice padding here on the top of the dashboard. It's also nice that you don't have any kind of physical shifter. You just have buttons here, and I think that really frees up the space here. You even have on the transmission tunnel here, some nice padding as well, although the very bottom of it is still hard plastic, but I like that the top is nice and padded, so that's great. I wish that there was a little more premium feeling materials though. Like, you have this textured plastic that does look like metal, but it is not, and certainly does not feel like metal. It's a nice look, but it would have been nice to see some type of wood or something here instead to maybe make this feel a little bit more expensive, but still very nice. I mean, you have the metal speaker grills over here that are nice and thick metal, feel great, and so there are a lot of premium feeling materials in here. But yeah, so it's very interesting, some of the choices in here, but I think overall it does give you a pretty upmarket feel. Storage space here in the Palisade is also very good. This is where it's actually near best in class. So first off, in the doors, you have a nice large pocket with a bottle holder, which is great. Coming over to the center here, at first glance, you'll see right up top here, this little area with a cover, and you will see your 2 cup holders here, which are very cool in the way that they slide out. It looks like something out of a James Bond movie or something, where it just comes out of nowhere, basically. It's very cool, one of the coolest cup holders. And I believe that's something that Santa Fe also has. I really like those. And then you have this Qi wireless charging pad here, which is great, and that's again on the higher trims, and also a USB jack there. But that's only the beginning, because there's a little pass-through to pass down to this massive area underneath here, and so that's why getting rid of the shifter mechanism really helped, because now it's shift by wire, and so you don't need any kind of linkage down here. So you have all this space. You also will see a standard power outlet and another USB jack down there too. And I mean, this space is massive. You could fit small purses in there with ease, or just a ton of other knickknacks you want to put down down there will fit very easily. And that is something that the Telluride and no other vehicles in this segment have that's this large, other than the Honda Pilot has something similar to this. Anyway, coming back, you have this center armrest here, which does feel nice, but it is pretty firm. I kind of wish that was a little softer for resting your elbow on for long durations, but nice to have some padding there, and does feel fairly premium. And anyway, you open that up, and then you have this very deep cubby here, so even more space. I mean, that you could probably fit, you know, like a gallon of milk or something in there very easily. I mean, it is very big. They have this removable tray up top, and also USB jack and another power outlet down there. And I mean, just really a good amount of space. So like I said, no complaints as far as storage space goes. Backseat space in the Palisade, of course, is fantastic. This being a 3-row crossover and one of the largest ones out there as well. They just did such a good job of maximizing the space. And even though this is a little bit shorter physically on the outside than stuff like the Mazda CX-9, this has way more interior space than a CX-9 does, for example. It's very similar to the Telluride. That was also kind of best in class in my mind, just so spacious. But anyway, first off, in that second row there, you have captain's chairs here in the Limited, so that makes this a 7-passenger vehicle because you fit 3 in the bench in the third row there. And so you can get a bench here in the second row if you'd like. That will be on the lower trims where you can get that, and you can also get the bench, or you can also get the captain's chairs as an option in the lower trims too if you really want that. But if you do want an 8-seater, you're going to have to forego the Limited, I believe is the way they have it set up currently, and go for the SEL Premium, which still has many of the same features, but you don't get the bench there. But these captain's chairs are really great. One of the nice things about them is that you have heated and cooled seats, and you know, so great to have that. And also they have their own climate control back there, and they even have their own air vents back there too, and there's plenty of them. And there's a cool little trick for those air vents, which is also unique to the Palisade, and that is that it has a diffuser on them. So if you want to have the air blasting in your face, you can have that, but if you want to turn that on to the diffuse option, it'll actually give you a wider angle, and so that will actually kind of cool you off a little bit better, but it also will be less intense. And so that's a very thoughtful feature. I mean, who thought to reinvent the air vent in the roof of 3-row crossovers? But they did, and so that's very impressive. Beneath those climate controls, you're going to find a normal power outlet and also a normal house current plug. So you have 2 ways to power up things if you'd like. And if that's not enough, you have USB jacks in the seat backs here, one for each side. Also in the doors there, you will see dual cup holders on the top, and then also a bottle holder lower in the door pocket there, and that is great. You also have this nice expansive rear moonroof to complement the front one here. Only the front one opens, the rear is fixed, but does look really great. As far as space in that second row goes, it's pretty spacious. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, you know, with those seats slid all the way back, I easily have, I don't know, you know, probably about 9 inches of legroom to spare probably. And then if you were to slide those forward to give the third row the maximum amount of space, then I still have about an inch or 2 of legroom to spare. So plenty of legroom there no matter which way you cut it. And also another thing that's great about those second row seats is that they're so easy to slide forward to get into the third row. It's so easy that a kid can do it all on their own, and it's just like what you see in the Telluride and also the Pilot, which is the best system out there, where you have buttons. It's all powered. You press the button, it flings itself forward, and you get right into the back there. And so as long as you can push a button, you can get in the third row of this vehicle, which is fantastic. And it's you know, a pretty spacious third row too, as far as just getting back there. And then once you are back there, it's pretty spacious. Again, if you're going to have 3 wide in that third row, they're going to want to be smaller. 3 adults back there is going to be a tight squeeze, at least width-wise. And as far as legroom goes, though, in that third row, it isn't bad. So again, me being 5'9", with that second row slid all the way back, my knee is resting against the seat back there. So it wouldn't be comfortable for long distances, but you do fit. And so that's good. But then if you, again, you slide that second row forward even just a little bit, then that gives you enough legroom to not be rubbing up against the back of the seat. And then if you slide it all the way as far as it'll go, then I mean, you have several inches of legroom to spare there. There's also USB jacks there in the third row, 1 for each side, for 7 total USB jacks in this vehicle. There's also 2 cup holders on each side there, and there's even grab handles you can see built in so that you can get out of that third row just as easily as you hopped in. And so overall, I mean, it is so usable. I will say that headroom in the third row is sufficient for me, again, being 5'9", but overall, still, I mean, just a fantastic amount of space and usage of space here in the Palisade. Trunk space in the Palisade is also fantastic. So again, right in line with some of the best in this segment. So I mean, you have a nice wide area there, and it's pretty deep. I mean, mean, you can easily lay down, carry-on size luggage, and even, larger suitcases should be able to lie down there. And that's not all though, because beneath the floor there, you lift that up, and that whole thing is one giant bin. So you almost have double the amount of cargo space there beneath the floor as well. So, all that combined makes this a very, very good amount of space. And, it's also power folding third row here too in the Palisade. And so overall, just a fantastic amount of space here as far as cargo space goes for the Palisade. All right, so starting to go for a drive. The Palisade here has the normal Hyundai key here. This one unfortunately has a label on it, but that usually does say Hyundai there. And then you have some glossy buttons there on the back of it. And so a really nice key, has a nice weight to it. It has a little bit of a satin texture to it, which makes it feel a little higher quality. But of course, the keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the metal engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the 2020 Hyundai Palisade. So first thing you notice is you have really good visibility. A pretty thin A-pillar, which is kind of rare. A lot of these larger vehicles are starting to get chunkier A-pillars, and I like that you have the side mirror here off of the A-pillar, and even the speaker is very small here at the A-pillar, so there isn't really any obstructions there, and of course you're sitting up nice and high. Also, view out of the back is great in typical SUV fashion with a nice large rectangular shaped window there. Other things though, so we're on the Blue Ridge Parkway right now, and just going downhill here. It's an incredibly smooth and quiet ride. That's one thing that really stands out, is it's not just quiet like most family crossovers are fairly quiet. This is a little bit better than most of those, I think. It really is impressive just how quiet it is. And really, especially since you're in this luxurious interior here at the Palisade, it really does feel a lot more expensive than the price tag would suggest, not only with the interior materials, but also with the drive quality here. Other things, so as we're going around a couple of corners here, you have nicely weighted steering. Again, it's not too light, it's not too heavy, it's just right for a vehicle of this type, I think. And all the other driver inputs here are very good. You have a nice touchy brake pedal. You have a little bit of dead travel, so it's easy to be smooth with, but still bites down very nice and feels reassuring. Love these corners. That really gives us a good little sample here of the handling, which is fairly flat, for a large family sedan like this. So these do range in weight depending on whether you go for front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and what trim you have and the kind of equipment you have will kind of weigh it down. But this one here, we're in a limited all-wheel drive, weighs 4,387 pounds, so just under 4,400 pounds, and that's right in line with most of the competition here. So nothing remarkable about that, but it hides its weight fairly well so far. Obviously, if you had this loaded up with a bunch of people, it'd feel a little heavier. But here we have 3 people in the car total, and it feels pretty good for a large 3-row. And I think I'll have to do some more driving here to get a better feel for how it handles. But coming up to another corner here, and yeah, it feels really good. So it also has, with the all-wheel drive versions here, you have a torque vectoring system. Now it's a brake-based torque vectoring, so it's not quite as advanced as like Honda's torque vectoring, which actually uses the engine power, but it does kind of help you out in corners. And then if you have it in sport mode, that can also put a little bit more torque to the rear, although it's never a 50-50 split unless you're in the all-wheel drive lock mode, which is for off-roading. Whenever you're driving, I think the most you're going to get to the rear is about 35% of the power. So it is still a front-biased system, but feels good. And I mean, you're going to have to really be pushing it to notice those types of differences, and most family crossover buyers are not going to ever be doing that kind of driving. And so for the type of driving most people do, this is going to be very impressive. I mean, from the second you pull out on a test drive, you're going to notice just how well it absorbs bumps, just how quiet it is, how smooth and just luxurious it actually feels. Alrighty, so we're going to turn down onto this back road and see how the Palisade does. And here we go. Okay, gets up and goes goes pretty well. So we're running a 3.8 liter naturally aspirated V6, but it is direct injected now. This is a newer one that actually can run the Atkinson cycle for increased efficiency if you'd like. And so it does 292 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque, and it'll do 0 to 60 in about 6.9 seconds. So that's right in line with, you know, most of the competitors out there. Very average performance, and again, in this segment you don't need to have a hot rod, so totally sufficient power, I think, for a vehicle of this type. I mean, it doesn't feel fast, but it totally feels adequate for sure, and feels good though. And we're also in sport mode here, so it makes the transmission a little bit eager to get up and go. So we're running an 8-speed automatic transmission here. It's the Hyundai's own in-house transmission, and it works very good. Obviously it's shared with Kia as well, and so I'm familiar with this one from the Telluride as well that I've already reviewed. I'm continuing to be impressed with the handling. So the limited here is on these larger 20-inch wheels as well. If you go for the lower trims, you will have 18-inch wheels, and that could potentially give you a little bit of a softer ride because you're going to have more sidewall there, but it's going to probably limit your handling on those lower models a little bit more squirm with those taller sidewalls than you get here with the 20s. But yeah, it feels nice going around these corners, very composed, and just, like I said, just feels very refined, and I'm pretty impressed with this. I think this actually, to me at least, seems to have a tiny bit more polish than the Telluride actually, and I was just driving a Telluride about a week and a half ago, and this feels a little different, which I'm kind of surprised by, honestly. Other things, though, speaking of this engine, as far as its fuel economy, I mentioned, you know, it can run on the Atkinson cycle, and that helps it to get a little bit of a better highway fuel economy figure. So these are rated for the all-wheel drive version, 19 in the city, 24 on the highway, and then 21 combined. Now, if you were to go for a front-wheel drive Palisade, which is available, then you can you'll still get the same 19 in the city, but you will get one better combined. You'll go up to 22, and then you'll get two better on the highway. That goes up to 26. And again, for a large vehicle like this, you know, that's actually pretty good fuel economy. I'm going to continue to drive around here, and I'll come back and give you guys my final thoughts here in a few hours. Alright, so I've been driving the Palisade around all day here, and it's a really nice cruiser. That is the thing that just blows me away, is just how smooth it is. I would venture to say this is probably the most comfortable in this segment. I think that I've felt it's even a little more comfortable than the Telluride, actually. Just a buttery smooth ride, but that doesn't sacrifice handling. You know, I was going around those tight corners and it was still so flat. I mean, you felt the weight, and of course it is, you know, a larger 3-row SUV, so you're going to feel that weight, but it was just remarkable just how good that ride control is. Then you also, here in the limited ones, and I think some of the other ones, it's an option to get the auto leveling rear suspension. Now, it isn't an air suspension or anything complicated like that. It's a mechanical setup that after a very short amount of driving, it will level itself out, and so that's helpful if you do carry heavy things in the back, or if you're towing, or if you have a lot of people in that third row. And that's a very nice feature to have too, that, you know, kind of helps so that, you know, your headlights are pointed in the right angle and stuff whenever you're driving at night and all that. And but yeah, I mean, just a fantastic ride quality, and that's really going to be one of the main things that people look for in this segment. And like I said, it's going to be tough to beat this. I mean, we also even did some off-roading here in the all-wheel drive versions. I'm now in the front-wheel drive version, which is available in all trims, by the way. So if you don't need the all-wheel drive, you can still get a limited with front-wheel drive, which is something a lot of the other manufacturers do not offer, and so that's kind of cool. But anyway, yeah, we did some off-roading on some you know, pretty demanding trails with, you know, some articulation there for the suspension and everything, and it handled it all. It did a really good job, and also having this 360 camera, including the front camera, was really helpful, especially going over those trails, being able to get a better view of what's going on in front of you, because whenever you're on trails and stuff, although, you know, you have really good visibility here, you still do have a little bit of a hood to look out over, and so you can't see as good as that camera. So that was very helpful, actually. It's also very helpful for when you're parking and all that kind of stuff. Other stuff that's helpful, you have all the safety tech here. Now, some of the stuff is reserved for the higher trims, although there is still a good amount of standard safety equipment, and I'll just list on the screen all this stuff, because these days there's a whole laundry list of different things, and they're all called different things depending on the manufacturer and stuff. So I'll include all that there on the screen, but you know, it's really great how much stuff it has. It even has, you know, like not only a lane keep assist, but also lane change assist that goes with the blind spot monitoring, so that if it sees you starting to swerve into the other lane to make a lane change, but it senses a car there, it will actually counter steer for you to make sure you don't hit them. And so all that kind of stuff is very advanced. It has ultrasonic sensors to actually tell if there's movement in the back seat, to make sure you don't leave anything back there. All those types of things. Very safety focused vehicle. It's of course going to be very, very safe as far as crash standards and stuff go too. I believe they're targeting an IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus here in the Palisade. And again, being a family vehicle, that makes a lot of sense that they would go for that and make that a priority. Another thing while you're just cruising around here in the Palisade that's nice is this 12-speaker Harman Kardon stereo, which has 630 watts and sounds pretty good, in addition to looking really nice here with these metal speaker grills. And so it's nice that, a lot of the other competitors don't offer a premium branded stereo in this segment. And 12 speakers isn't super high these days. A lot of other systems and higher end vehicles having a lot more. But for this segment, I think that's really great, and it's a really nice sounding stereo. And again, paired up with this fantastic infotainment system, it's a really good sound. Another thing that's really nice here is the tow rating of the Palisade. So while some of the competitors are a little less than this, and there is, I think, one competitor that has a little bit more of a higher tow rating, this will do 5,000 pounds for its tow rating. And that's, 5,000 again is towards the top of the pack there, and very competitive and very impressive too. So they also come pre-wired with a tow package, so it has most of the hardware. I believe you do still need to actually purchase the hitch and all that kind of stuff to complete the package, but they all do come pre-wired, ready to tow, with a heavy-duty transmission oil cooler and stuff like that. Yeah, really the last thing to mention here is the pricing of the Palisade. So that is also very competitive. So compared to the Telluride, actually, it's about $140 cheaper or so. So actually a tiny bit beneath that. But then you can load this up, and I believe the top trim can get a tiny bit pricier than Telluride, but still the Hyundai value is here, and it is it's really impressive. So these start around, I think, $32,600 and then go all the way up to about $47,500 when you include destination there. And so even at $47,500, you're looking at a vehicle that's got more equipment, more luxury to it than something like a fully loaded Honda Pilot Elite, for example, which can get about $49,000. And I would argue that this even plays in the premium segment. I think honestly this interior feels nicer and has more nice features than what you get in even like a Buick or even like an Acura. Like comparing this to like an Acura MDX, I think the MDX probably handles a little bit better. But outside of that, the Acura has a pretty dated interior, and that is due for a redo soon. But this having the digital gauges, the widescreen display that's touchscreen, very easy. I think they made all the right choices here with the Palisade. I would probably take this over some of those premium offerings as well. You have way more space than stuff like a Lexus RX L and things like that. They came out swinging here with the Palisade, and I think it's going to be a very solid value proposition. And then you factor in the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty that all Hyundais have as well, and that just makes it even more of a knockout as far as the value proposition, considering only Kia is the only other one that offers that. And so that also really makes the Palisade stand out from the crowd, not only with its features and its value, but also with its looks, which again are very striking and very good looking in my opinion. Yeah, so overall I'm very impressed with the Palisade here. Now, as a last little aside, I will say that I still think that the Telluride has a little bit more of a premium feel on the inside. It's very close to this, but to me that just felt a tiny bit nicer in some areas. But really these two, regardless of which one you pick, they're both styled very, very differently, both inside and outside. So, it's going to come down to what you prefer looks-wise as well. Either one you cannot go wrong with. They're both spectacular. I think they're both best in their class in basically every single way. And they're just an unbeatable value. And yeah, I've already seen tons of Tellurides, and now the Palisade has been on sale for a few weeks here. I'm sure these are going to start popping up very, very quickly as well. And so anyway, yeah, let me know your thoughts on the Palisade in the comments below. And thank you guys very much for watching. Thanks to Hyundai for providing me with this opportunity, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.